This is a More Than Just Podcast production.
Welcome to Spockcast, Season 5, Episode 12. My name is Timothy. I am in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined by Jonathan Kuline over there, in Mississauga, Ontario.
Hello, and how is everybody on this fine holidays eve?
Shouldn't you be saying, like, hey kids, or whatever it is you normally say?
Do I say that? Okay.
Yeah.
Hey kids!
That's your catchphrase.
That's my catchphrase. Have I got one now? I feel like I may have got
I thought
a better one.
Well, that's what you came up with, so you're stuck with it now.
All right.
So we weren't around last week, but a couple of weeks ago, Jonathan mentioned that Joseph Mall. I'm going to go with Joseph Mall from Rings of Power. You were wondering why he's not on the show. Well, apparently he quit the show. So it wasn't like any kind of strange thing happening. He just, that's why they announced a new actor, because he posted on Twitter here that he's reasons for leaving. So there you go.
And what did you glean from that? Did he have a good reason for leaving?
No, I think he just he had his fun, and I guess he just didn't want to continue on with the show, or continue on with the character, I guess. I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, I still find it a little baffling. I mean, you'd think that they would have signed them for more than one season. So
yeah,
I don't know exactly how that works, how one gets out of a contract like that.
All right, well, we'll move on to headlines. And of course, Jonathan, you're up first with the headline.
I am, yeah. So while we were off, we got some more news from the ongoing changes at DC. So we knew that, James Gunn had taken over and was coming in and making some big changes. They talked about some cancellations and different stuff. This one was really weird. So we got news this week that Henry Cavill is officially done in the role of Superman at DC, which is really confounding when you also add in the fact that he, had just appeared in the stinger on the Black Adam movie. Sorry if you get spoiled there, but c'est la vie. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't like it had been years since he played that role. He played that role in a movie that came out like 2 months ago. And then he also had resigned his job at on Netflix's The Witcher, because apparently he was going back to start making more movies. So it's really strange. Now they softened it. There's a story here from Variety that we're referencing, and he's talked about coming back in a different role or doing some other kind of work with DC. But Superman is right there, one of the sexiest jobs you can have at DC. So like, what's he gonna do that's gonna be equal good or otherwise? Now, on the heels of that, is a story today from the Hollywood Reporter that Cavill has signed on to be the star of the new Warhammer 40,000 series. So Amazon just acquired the rights to Warhammer 40,000, which is a very popular tabletop game, and he's going to be the lead in that. So we've gone from him being the star of The Witcher with not clarity around his Superman role, to coming back to play Superman and quitting his Witcher role, to not coming back as Superman and now playing a role on Amazon's Warhammer 40K series. It's a weird year for Henry Cavill. I'm not sure I can make any sense of this.
I don't know. Maybe he doesn't want to get typecast, and he wants to go and do stage and screen or whatever. But yeah, isn't that Warhammer thing, like, is that a DC thing or not? Because I've heard somewhere that he was also doing another DC character, maybe.
Yeah, Warhammer is its own thing. So that's the Games Workshop thing. Apparently, it was a pretty hot property. Warhammer is very, very popular tabletop franchise, and so maybe there's an audience for that. But to me, it seems like he'd already done 2 seasons of The Witcher and then quits that to become Superman again, and then gets fired from that. He might have another role with DC, but he's going to go do this other thing. It just seems really messy.
Wait, he got fired as Superman, or?
Well, they've agreed that he's not going to come back, which is, to me, sounds like, media spin for, we don't want him back.
Right. Okay.
It sounds like James Gunn is basically clearing house. Like it doesn't sound like anybody's gonna continue in the roles that they've been in up until now, which is fine, and it's his prerogative, and maybe they need a clean slate. But the really confusing part of this, and the part that they don't really mention here, is what about all the movies that are done? Like Shazam 2 is done and going to be coming out. Aquaman 2 is done and going to be coming out. There are these movies that are just sort of sitting there ready to go. Why on earth would you go see them if you know that they're basically pulling the plug on that version of the DCU? Why care at all?
Yeah, don't know. I don't know.
Not that apparently a lot of people cared to begin with, because we've clearly
Well, how many
clearly run into a brick wall.
we've had what since Christopher Reeve, we've had what, this is the third Superman that we've had?
Third theatrical, yes. There's been multiple ones on TV in that time as well, right?
Right. Oh yeah, and then there's also Lois and Clark and the Smallville guy. Yeah, yeah. That doesn't confuse things at all, right? So
yeah, plus the new series that's on.
Oh, the new series as well. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just continuing to be more and more confusing. And this is the same problem that comic books have faced for years, right? Is comic books never end. Like new artists come in, new writers come in, new editors take over, but the characters remain. You've been publishing Superman for 80 years. You've been publishing, Batman for 80 years. Continuity becomes a real problem. How do you
Well, I was going to say, do they maintain that, what do you call it, canon? Do they maintain that kind of, or does each artist and story writer get to write their own story, right?
They do and they don't. I mean, that's why you have things like Crisis on Infinite Earths or Secret Wars, or, there's been any number of these sort of crises, things that have happened in DC and Marvel continuity over the years to try and clean things up. So they'll be like, oh, that whole time that was on an alternate Earth, and they'll find ways to sort of write it out so that these things can simultaneously exist or not. That seems to be what Marvel is currently driving towards the Secret Wars thing. They've got a sort of timey-wimey, multi-dimensional thing going on. That way they can clean house a little bit and be like, oh, in this newly amalgamated universe, there was a different Iron Man and a different Spider-Man.
Do they mess with the origin stories too, or?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, a lot of the roots remain the same, but in some circumstances, it's about changing guard, right? They have Miles Morales take over for Peter Parker, or again exist in the same universe but do his own thing. So they really can do a lot of things. In this case, though, it seems like what they're talking about for DC is just wholesale change of the characters. They want to take them back to a younger phase in their lives. They don't want 40-year-old Henry Cavill and 35-year-old Gal Gadot and 45-year-old Ben Affleck, or nearly 50-year-old Ben Affleck playing these roles. They want a bunch of people in their 20s that they can build forward. So they're just gonna wipe the slate clean and go from there.
Yeah. Well. Oh well.
Yeah.
Such as it is.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. Speaking of going back to the trough and dragging out the old actors and stuff.
Yeah. So Avatar made its long awaited debut, Avatar 2, The Way of Water, or Avatar, The Way of Water. Decent opening weekend. So it made 134 domestics, that's North America, and 435 internationally, 435 million. Is the third biggest global opening of the year behind, during the pandemic, I should say, behind Spider-Man No Way Home and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. The question is this sustainable, or is this going to dip? We talked about how they were talking that they needed to make around $2 billion for this to sort of be a profitable venture for them and sort of guarantee the stability of the Avatar franchise. So that's not bad. I mean, that's nearly a quarter of a way there in one weekend worldwide. That's not bad. the question is, now that we're headed into the holiday season, are people going to go see it in the theater over the holidays? Is there going to be, a lot of people making that, is it going to sustain basically these kinds of numbers? Because the only way it can go is if it just keeps sustaining and keeps bringing more people in.
Yeah, I think with the holiday season, like obviously, that's movie going is a big thing during the break, right? Like between
Yeah.
Christmas and New Year's, there are people who don't celebrate Christmas per se. The people finishing up their Hanukkah stuff and, they have to go do something. And that's because we've always wondered, you and I have always wondered why there's so many premieres around Christmas. In fact, do we know of any major things that are coming out next week? I guess a few, right? But
I think it's mostly award fair. Like it's the stuff they want to get into theaters for qualifications for the Oscars for spring.
Oh, right. Yeah.
For February. And yeah, there's a lot of that stuff, but not a lot of like, I took a quick look to sort of see, well, what's going to compete against Avatar? And there's certainly nothing of Avatar's weight. There's no Marvel movies. There's no like thing that sort of threatens them. So chances are a lot of bums are going to be in seats to see Avatar 2 over the holidays. So maybe that's the strategy is instead of just saying, well, we want to go big and nail, $1 billion over the first couple of weekends, they're thinking, you know what? It's a very populist movie. It's a good theater movie. We're just going to keep cranking out the dough for 6, 8, 10 weeks until we hit $2 billion.
Yeah, well, like Doctor Strange is in a gazillion theaters at the same time, right? Like, 'cause I was looking, you and I mean, I was going to go see it on Thursday last week, and then I was in Chicago, but when I realized it was 3 hours, I'm like, I don't know if I have 3 hours to invest in this. And plus, do I order DoorDash in the middle of the movie? Like, how do I maintain that 3 hour thing? And what about, do I need to take a nice, memory foam air cushion with me to sit on for the whole time? And,
is it time? Is it time we went to one of those, what do they call them? The VIP? Should we go to the VIP?
Yeah, the VIP. Well, they don't deliver food during the movie, though, right? They only do.
They don't do IMAX either.
Well, I know, but they only like the VIP sounds good. Oh, we'll bring the food right to you. Yeah, but like the few times I've been there, I always show up late, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, it's too late for you to order food now because we can't have the waitress walking in front. You can go to the bathroom in front of people, but you can't bring the waitress in to feed the people, right? Plus, I guess they can't see what's going on, but yeah, and like I think I told you that somebody suggested buy tickets for 2 showings, show up halfway through the first one, so you get the second half of the movie, and then go have a break and go to the bathroom, and then go watch the beginning of the movie to see how it started, to see what you missed, right? And I think you posted that the New York Times had a schedule where they give you hints as to when you can go have a pee break kind of thing, right?
Yeah, they basically said like, here's the times that might work the best as far as your potential pee breaks. That way you won't have to try and sustain for that entire amount of time, which is ridiculous.
So another weird thing about it is I guess this is an old 60s thing, I guess 60s and 70s thing that, Gandhi was like a 3-hour movie, right? Yep. Cleopatra was pretty close to 3 hours, right? 2001 I think it's 2 hours, but all of these have intermissions. Like it used to be a thing that, in the middle of the movie, the curtain would come down and they would play some intermission music and you would go refill your popcorn. I don't know why they don't do that anymore, like create a cliffhanger moment and then say, come back in 15 minutes or something. And like in the middle of like even what do you call, the Avenger movies are crazy long, right?
Yeah. I mean, the Lord of the Rings ones were the real like watermark for how much can you endure in a thing you enjoy, right? Hey, yeah, I really like this, but man, that 4th movie, that was long.
Yeah, that's true. 4th movie? Only 3 books.
3rd movie. But then they turned 1 book into 3 movies.
They did the same thing in Harry Potter too. They did the same thing when they split I mean, I don't like that when they split the story into 2, right? Well, like Dune.
That was a tricky one because it made sense because there was so much stuff in that last book, but it also made for a bit of an unsatisfying. That first movie dragged.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you read the Lord of the Rings all the way through, you know that the story ends, and then there's like 4 chapters times. Or something of everybody going home, which is true. I guess it's like my favorite line in in Hot Fuzz is, after the big battle in the middle of the movie, they say, "What do we do now?" And he looks at them and goes, "Paperwork."
That's what it's about.
Actually, I got to put a link in the show notes here. I don't know if you saw it or not, but there's a sort of a teaser trailer, I guess, whatever, with James Cameron thanking you for going to the theaters, and doing it and doing a behind the scenes thing. Apparently, they're all in the water being filmed, like they're actually swimming around with the motion capture on, right? Including Kate Winslet and Sigourney Weaver and all those kind of guys are all like taking a dip. And in fact, I think Kate Winslet holds the record for free dive, holding her breath for over 7 minutes.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that article the other day, and I saw Lupita Nyong'o was putting out on her social media for the training for the Wakanda movie, which we saw the Wakanda Forever movie.
Yeah.
Obviously large portions of that were underwater, and she was doing the same thing. She was doing like weight training underwater and stuff because they had to do so much underwater stuff for that one.
No, I don't.
Yeah, because there's the whole thing where they go down into the underwater city where Namor is from, and she's trying to rescue Shuri. And so I guess in order to prepare for that, they filmed all that in water tanks and
well, that makes sense. I mean, you get the practical effects, right? They call it. Aquaman had a whole bunch of underwater scenes, but those were all CGI. It looked to me, right? Like, I mean, that's the other thing. You really can't fake being underwater, right? Like, I don't know how good an artist you are.
That's the part I think I'm most curious about. So I think you and I are probably going to go see Avatar sometime in the next week or two. I'm curious. I did see a few articles talking about the visual effects, the CGI on Avatar, saying that water has always been one of the hardest things to do really well in CG. And as you say, it seems like they did a lot of like motion capture as well. And apparently that is done extremely well in this Avatar movie. The water effects, the reality of, the sort of the way that the viscosity people move through it and things like that seems much more real than anything that's previously been done. So I'm curious to see how they've managed to sort of achieve that, because it can be a tricky thing to film in, for sure.
Well, I mean, it's like if you compare Gravity and Apollo 13. In Gravity, Sandra Bullock is hanging from, she's literally hanging, and she moves through the space stations and stuff. She doesn't move up and down. She just goes in a straight line, which Newtonian physics says you continue in a straight line, but there's no wavering in her movement. Whereas, the Apollo 13, they actually were in the Vomit Comet shooting scene. So when you see them like their whole body rolling through space, they really are in an anti-gravity kind of situation, right? So relatively speaking, of course, but yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of cool, but we'll have to wait and see. Again, it's got to be like, we were talking about last week or a couple of weeks ago, after you and I went back and saw it, it was kind of like, I guess we've seen so many good 3D movies that Avatar didn't really blow our socks off like it did the first time we saw it, right?
Yeah.
And I would think that, especially if he wants to do episode 3 and 4, let's call it for now. If he wants to do those, it's got to be like top notch in terms of its quality. I don't know if you've heard any reviews or whatever, or you've been avoiding them in terms of what, like, is it got like 4 stars or 5 stars or 2 thumbs up, or?
I've heard mixed things depending on who you ask. When I look at stuff that is sort of nerds adjacent, people seem overall pretty satisfied. When I've looked at mainstream pieces, a lot of people have said too long, too slow, and too just pew pew pew.
Yeah.
So I guess it depends on what you look for in these types of movies. I mean, let's face it, we talked about it even, whatever it was, 10 years ago when the first Avatar movie came out.
Mm-hmm.
I think we agreed it's an incredible achievement in filmmaking. It's not the best movie. It's just not. It's fine. It's Dances with Wolves and the Smurfs. Like, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And it's done really well, and there's certainly some amazing performances, and there's lots to like about it, but it's it's not top tier. It's top tier filmmaking. It's not top tier storytelling.
Yeah,
I think that's probably what I'm going in to expect. This one is, I'm sure it's going to be an absolute visual treat. James Cameron is a visionary filmmaker. He pushes the envelope unlike most filmmakers ever do. But is it going to be a great story filled with, incredibly emotional dialogue? Like, we'll see.
Well,
We'll see.
yeah, I mean it's the thing is like there's very few movies that can actually have a beginning and an end that satisfies. Like I love to bring Event Horizon in as my analogy because it was a great first half of the movie, right? First half of the movie is great, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, really? This old trope again? Why don't you bring some zombies and vampires out while you're at it, right? And and yeah, you're right. I mean, because it's the typical, the army has to come in and use brute force to take over, the planet. This is the first movie I'm talking about. For spoilers, for those of you who haven't seen that one yet, it's been a while. It's been a minute, but and that trope gets tiring. It's not as pretty and pleasant as they make it seem to be, even in that movie, right? In real life, as we see with the Ukraine, they're blowing up schools and orphanages and stuff, right? Just to be jerks, but big business, the whole idea of the unobtainium and how they have to force their way in, and you've got the jerk, what's his Giovanni Ribisi,
Giovanni Ribisi,
playing the jerk business guy who's going to do anything he can to get his hands on it, kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, it makes good fiction, but it's nowhere near fact. It's nowhere near what real life is like, right? As we can see on Twitter these days. But
yeah. I talked to my brother-in-law. He went and saw it last week, and he said that he said again, great visual treat, but he's like, imagine in your mind what the second one should be about. And I said, well, the last one basically ended with them kicking all the humans off the planet and humiliating them. So I'm going to guess this one's about the humans coming back with a vengeance. He's like, yep. I'm like, well, there you go. So.
Oh, we've seen the movie now. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, did you what else would it have been? Right. Like,
yeah, I don't know.
Hey, and he has to unite even more of them, and they're all going to fight back. Like, of course they are.
It's like, you got Alien, and you got Aliens, right? Like. You have to double down, right?
You do. I can only hope that is the trajectory, because Alien to Aliens, Alien was great. Aliens, I think, is an even better movie. But then it kind of slows down after that. We won't get into the contentiousness of Alien 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, is there that many? Yeah, I guess there are, right?
Yeah, if you add in Prometheus, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And Prometheus 2, or whatever it was called.
Covenant.
Yeah. Huh?
Yeah. Covenant,
yes. Alien Covenant, something like that. Yeah. I like the Predator versus Aliens ones. Those are fun. With the humans as the innocent bystanders,
I was gonna say, as humans get caught in between them,
they're the collateral damage, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Next up, I've got the more robust trailer for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. So this dropped last week. It was a little bit more of an in-depth look. We'd gotten a teaser before, but this one's more of an actual trailer. And yeah, Spider-Man, women, and other combined in this one. Lots and lots of different things. I've seen a whole bunch of breakdowns, people trying to figure out all the little cameos they've seen and everything else, which is part of the fun. Although I always find that tricky in trailers, right? You want to entice people to see it, but at the same time, like, I don't want it all given away. I want there to be spider surprises and for there to be lots of little twists and turns, and I'm sure there will be. I mean, the last movie was fantastic and had lots of little sneaky bits in there that were great. But what did you think of this? You had a chance to watch this trailer?
I'm kind of wondering if this is the one where she comes and says, "Come with me," and kind of thing. Is that the one? Because
yes.
Okay, yeah, because I think I saw this is the I think this can I'm pretty sure I've seen this one. It's a bit longer, as you said. It's very colorful. Lots of color.
And there's a lot of spider characters. It seems like we sort of find a nexus of spider characters, right?
Maybe that's why I'm kind of wondering if I actually saw this, because I didn't get the sort of Harry Potter spiders coming into the forest kind of vibe, but maybe I don't know if did I watch this one, or did I maybe skip it because I thought I'd already seen it.
I don't know, but yeah, I mean, we got a better look at some of the characters we saw in the teaser trailer. So we had seen that Spider-Man 2099 was going to be in it. We'd seen that there was going to be a few other characters. Spider-Punk is in it. This one, you just see that in one scene they sort of pan back and you can just see that there's spider characters all over the place. We saw what looked to be Spider-Woman, which is in the comic books is Jessica Drew, who's a Caucasian character, and this one it appears to be an African-American character, which is cool. It's nice to see an interesting twist on that too. So it seems like they're just doubling down, going bigger, more adventures with Miles, more adventures with Gwen, and yeah, I think it looks really cool. I mean, I love the first one. I thought it was just absolutely visionary. It was so different than anything else. It absolutely deserved the Oscar it won. And I think I think I can't wait for this one. It was supposed to be out now. They've delayed it till June. So
did it win the did it win the animated Oscar, or?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Actually, it's funny. I only saw that one on the back of a airplane seat. I should probably watch it on a big screen myself. But once you get the story, you get the story, right? It's just the visuals, right? And the soundtrack.
Yeah, but the visuals. I mean, I made a point to see it in the theater. I was actually really lucky one night. My wife had sort of said, what do you want to do tonight? I said, I really want to go see this Spider-Man movie. And I can't recall why you and I didn't see it, but she and I went and saw it, and it was a real treat to see on a big screen. It just hadn't planned to see it. I thought, it's just an animated picture. I'll just watch it when it comes out on Blu-ray or on streaming or whatever. But we made a point of seeing it, and I was like, wow, I'm glad we saw this on the screen. It's really neat to see because it's such a visually interesting movie. So
cool.
I got lucky on that end.
Yeah. And so we have news. We had Westworld ending, but now what do we have? Westworld continues. Westworld bought by Amazon. What's going on?
Yeah, so we had known that Westworld had been canceled. They weren't going to do a fifth and final season, which is a bummer because I think we all kind of wanted that to happen. Now we get news that Westworld, along with a whole bunch of other HBO properties, are actually leaving the HBO Max streaming app as it transitions into becoming simply Max, which is what the Discovery/HBO streaming service is going to be called going forward. And so as of now, we don't have we do have a home. We know that it's going to Freevee in the United States. Freevee is like an ad-supported streaming channel where you can watch content, but it's basically like network television. They splice the commercials into it, and you can watch it that way. It is free to watch, which is nice, but it's like commercial television. You have to watch the commercials.
Wait, so it's free to watch? So like you don't have to pay a streaming fee for it, or?
That is my understanding. I have not looked too hard into Freevee. I'm sure once our beloved friend Jaime Lopez Jr. rejoins us, he can explain the U.S. landscape a little bit more for us. The other part that I found confusing about this is it really was not clear what the changes to HBO Max or to Max mean for Canadian audiences who are getting that through Crave, because Crave has its own sort of deals. I don't know if content is staying on there or if content is going to migrate away. I don't know what the Canadian rights are compared to the American rights. I'll be curious to know whether or not we will be losing Westworld off of our streaming services, and therefore, if we want to watch it, we need to find another source as well. All of this has just become a bit of a really frustrating exercise, just because the rule had been for the past few years, if it was made by HBO, you found it on Crave here in Canada. And even a decent amount of archived stuff ended up there. So you can go back and watch all the Game of Thrones series. You can go back and watch the Westworlds. You can go back and watch his Dark Materials or anything else that sort of fits your interest. You go back as far as watching Sex and the City and Sopranos and everything else. Having that be spread out, to me, just defeats the whole purpose. Like the one of the reasons to have Crave and to have that sort of one source for that is that you get it all in one place. If I'm now going back to the same place that I was before, where I have to use a service like, sorry, what's the one that you use for looking up your shows?
Just Watch.
Just Watch. If I have to use a service like Just Watch just to figure out where HBO shows are when there's a service that's supposed to be HBO centric, it just does not make a lot of sense to me. It's becoming a frustrating exercise. So I'm disappointed that this is the way that they're going with this. I understand, obviously, there's, fiduciary reasons for them doing this. My understanding is that since the Discovery Warner merger, that they're trying to find ways to cut certain costs, and there's one of the ways they can do that, if they take Westworld off HBO Max, they don't have to pay the residuals to the creators, to the artists, to whomever, and that's one of their ways of getting out of it. Okay, fine, but as a consumer, you're kind of getting yanked around all over the place. So it's an unfortunate thing that seems to be happening, and I don't think it's ending yet. I think there's still more shoes to drop, which is unfortunate because, I mean, I don't think I was going to go back and watch all of Westworld anytime soon, but like so many things, it's nice to know it's there, right? And the truth is that we're getting back to that era that you and I have lived through before. History repeats itself. If you love something, go and buy it.
Yeah.
You can buy the digital copy, you can buy a physical copy, but if you love something and you think, I'm going to watch this multiple times again in my life, you really are better off to just buy the darn thing, because you're going to miss out. There's going to be stuff that's going to get yanked around or moved over to a service that you don't subscribe to,
or disappear altogether. Yeah. Or disappear altogether.
Absolutely just get completely wiped off the map. I went looking the other day because one of my favorite documentaries was available for a long time on Apple, and I went to look the other day and I noticed that it was gone, and I looked and it is gone. Like, they don't have the rights to it at all.
What's
now
that?
I have a copy. It's called King of Kong, and it's a documentary about a guy who's trying to break the world record in Donkey Kong.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's a great documentary. If anybody's ever seen it, it's really, really entertaining, and it just talks about the era from the 80s through till now about competitive, world record setting arcade game players. And I have owned a copy on DVD for a long time, but I don't own a digital copy. I don't own a high res copy. I don't even know if there is a high res copy. And I had thought, maybe I'll buy a digital copy. That way I'll be able to watch it, at my convenience. It's gone. And it's not being streamed anywhere.
Nobody's ripped it to YouTube at all, or I guess you just can't find it, right?
I didn't go down that far as looking for it, but yeah, it's so strange that these things just, again, rights change, rights lapse. Somebody else buys it and puts it on some obscure streaming channel. Now there's, 25 at least streaming channels that anything can be moved on to. We talked about, obviously, the massive cost involved in, do I have this one but not this one? I have this one but not this one. If Crave is losing its HBO content, how much longer is Crave going to be relevant?
Yeah. Speaking of Donkey Kong, did you see the new 90s trailer, that 90s show?
Oh yeah
with Topher Grace and Mila Kunis and what's his name, the Valmer,
Wilmer Valderrama,
yeah, and
yeah.
And but the line in it is did you hear about Donkey Kong? It's a gorilla. As they're baked, right?
Yeah.
They're in a bake session. They're baking cakes. Yes, that's what they're doing, baking cakes. All right. What else? What's going on in CW?
Yeah, just a quick one. So we did finally find out when we're going to get the last few episodes of what seems to be a rapidly diminishing number of CW DC shows. So basically all that's left, Stargirl ended 2 weeks ago. All that's left is Lois and Clark, Superman and Lois, different show. And Gotham Knights is supposed to be coming. So we knew that these were the last sort of two Gotham Knights hadn't even debuted yet, but then there was this whole sort of house cleaning. We know The Flash is going to be ending. All the other shows have either been canceled or wrapped. So we now know season 3 premiere for Superman and Lois and the series premiere for Gotham Knights are both coming on Tuesday, March 14th on the CW. Where they're going to play here, I'm not sure, because CW does not have a Canadian direct equivalent. We were getting some of those through Netflix, some of those through streaming. So I'll take a look into it and see what I can find. I haven't seen anything so far as to where these are showing up. But okay. Yeah, if you're still in on the CW DC experiment, this is apparently where you can go. I really do wonder if this is long for it. To me, it seems like these both seem doomed, because it seems like they're consolidating all the DC content in the movie theaters through James Gunn stuff, and then they want to put the rest of it on HBO. So, or HBO Max, or Max, depending on what day of the week it is.
The last story here is mine. And follows up on, I think we talked about AI. Did we talk about AI? The people making their own avatars and stuff like that. I've talked about it in a few podcasts recently, but so this one is kind of cool. Like, the issue is that all these AIs are being trained on your face or on. I found a site actually where I'll put a link in the show notes where you can actually go and put your picture up and see if you've actually been trained. Like, have I been pwned is for has my email been compromised from a website, but there's have I been trained, which is has your face been used in training, which is interesting because I put my face up and all these guys that look like me show up. Thankfully, not me, right? And sometimes if I'm wearing a hat, they all have wearing hats, and it's all people about my age with the same facial structure as I do, and beards and all that kind of stuff. Like really weird, creepy looking stuff. Like I didn't realize I had that many brothers, right? But so the idea here is the AIs that people are having these avatars made with, all these like space suits and backgrounds and artist things, they're actually using legitimate artists as source material, but those artists didn't necessarily opt into letting their source material be the stuff that's training them. So as an artist, as I mentioned before, I'm kind of opposed to I like the idea of it, but I'm kind of opposed to the fact that they're using they're unrecognized, uncredited, not paid for artists or works to build these AI models, right? To train them. So what artists are doing is they're taking big name properties like Mickey Mouse, Mario, Spider-Man, and they're making these images as source material so instead of the small artists fighting the big AI machine, they're getting the big copyright players to fight the big machine, like the Disneys and the Marvels and the the DCs and the Pokemons and or who, I don't know who owns Pokemon, but Bandai, I don't know who owns that one, but where's Jaime when I need him? But yeah, I just thought these are hilarious. So it's like Mickey kills and is going to do it again kind of stuff, right? And just stuff that will get Disney a little miffed, but somebody pointed out, if I can get Mickey Mouse holding an M16 rifle, I totally would put that on a t-shirt, right? So
yeah,
so that's kind of a cool story. But anyway, we've arrived at the main part of the show where we talk about something related to Star Trek. This week we're continuing on with Prodigy. Star Trek Prodigy, and we're going to do 2 episodes, Mindwalk, and this is episode number 18, and 19 is called Supernova Part 1, which, kind of ended up on a cliffhanger, so I guess there's going to be a Supernova Part 2. Am I going out on a limb saying that?
That is the final episode of the season next week.
Yeah, I kind of thought this was the final episode, but I guess I got one more to go through. So right off the bat, I got to say, Mindwalk was actually a pretty decent episode compared to all the other episodes so far. This is the trope from the very last broadcast episode of Star Trek, the original series. It was called Turnabout Intruder. This is the 24th episode of season 3, where Kirk's ex-girlfriend, who's mad at him, gets this technology and manages to swap bodies with him. right? So that she gets to be the captain of the Enterprise, and he gets to be the petulant female who's, running around saying, "But nobody's listening to me," kind of thing. So that's essentially what happens in this episode, where in order to communicate with Janeway, they decide to try and do a telegraphic connection, and because they're surrounded by the protostars chasing them I think they're in the warp bubble, right? And not the protostar, but the protostars being chased by Janeway's ship, and they're firing on them and that kind of stuff. And so Zero can't do it, but turns out because Dal is an augment, he can try and do a tap, like a telegraphic tap between him and Janeway, and they end up swapping bodies, so that Dal ends up being in the Janeway character on the other ship. I'm going to call it Enterprise from now. We'll correct that in a minute.
The Dauntless.
Dauntless, thank you. And and of course Janeway ends up in Dal's body, and that's when they kind of explain about the 26 different species that makes him up, and she learns about the machine, the Doomsday Machine or device that's going to basically destroy the Enterprise.
The construct, I think, is what they call it.
Construct is going to destroy the Federation by in basically creating a virus and infecting them all, kind of thing, right? And we do find out in the next episode how that manifests. But you want to give us your elevator pitch?
The elevator pitch for this one is Dal and Admiral Janeway go full Freaky Friday, right? Which is pretty much. It's so funny because, we talk about obviously this being Starter Trek and Trek 101, and you start a flashback in your mind when you see an episode like this. You're like, yeah, it's like Freaky Friday or 20 episodes of Star Trek over the years where people have swapped bodies.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was basically, it was exactly that. It was, well, how quirky would it be if, Janeway ended up there, but then Dal has to pretend to be Janeway on the thing. And of course that goes like a catastrophe. It's awful. He ends up, getting thrown in the brig and making a fool of Admiral or Vice Admiral Janeway. The episode overall, I think, worked. You're right, because it was both funny and important. It wasn't just a throwaway episode. It was an episode with purpose. It was about getting the information to Janeway, trying to sort of, build that connection, having Janeway see that the crew are actually, working to try and help them and everything else. But then had this sort of the funny Dal moments and, and her trying to sort of get to know the crew and everything. So it was good. It was a good episode. The best pew 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 I had was them trying to reverse the swap where Dal, I started calling them Dalway and was it Admir? What do they call it? Admirdal and Dalway. But they basically ended up pulling, using Murph to stretch out to some incomprehensible length that we didn't know he could do, in order for them to be able to touch, so that they could then swap bodies.
But then he can't go all the way. Like there was some bit where he had to. Didn't they have to let go or something at one point? One of them did.
Yes, they couldn't quite make the connection, so that's when sort of Janeway inside Dal's body uses the phaser to make the connection.
Right.
By shooting at herself, which is actually Dal. And that's what ends up transferring them back is the energy of the phaser connecting.
Yeah.
Cool. I found the scenes with Janeway inside Dal, inside the protostar, to be kind of weird. There was two scenes in particular. The one where she mentions, I have it down as my Easter egg, is she mentions, well, at one point I was turned into a salamander, so therefore this isn't the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me. That, of course, was from an episode of Voyager. We saw her, devolve. But the question that I had coming out of this, from my big question is so Janeway's inside Dal's body and is trying to convince the holographic version of Janeway that she is who she says she is inside. And she says, well, tell me something only I would know. And then she's like, do you remember this time where, your sister did this and blah, blah, blah. Who programs a computer with that kind of intimate
memory,
knowledge?
Yeah, exactly.
What purpose would that ever serve to have a command computer program who's like, knows all of Janeway's intimate secrets. Like,
well,
that seems
there's
a
an
little
edge
bit
case where
far-fetched.
you could end up swapping bodies with another entity, and you have to prove that you're that person. That could be a case where you need that information.
Yes, I guess.
So my big question for this whole episode, my big question for like the last 3 episodes, right? 2
Mhm.
words: Morse code.
Yeah. Still
Like,
haven't come up with anything better by the 24th century.
can't they kind of like blink the lights to do the Morse code thing? And they got the brightest minds on the Dauntless. Is it
The
Dauntless? Yeah.
Dauntless, yeah.
Yeah, on
Yeah.
the Dauntless.
Yep.
Like, couldn't Janeway or holographic Janeway kind of teach the kids, Morse code,
Well, don't you
can't
remember that
talk
from
right
a few
now.
episodes back? They were trying to do that, but they were trying to use the phasers to send out the short signals, and they're like,
Oh,
"Yeah, maybe use the lights and not the
yeah.
phasers to be like dash dash dot dash dash dot,
Yeah.
just so you don't accidentally get blown out of the sky by the Dauntless."
I mean, because like how many
Yeah.
movies have you ever seen where you can't, they can't communicate, they're too far, the radio's broken, they got no batteries, whatever the story is, somebody invariably figures out, I can tap on the wood, or in fact,
Yeah.
I think even in an episode of Enterprise, I think where Hoshi is invisible and
Mm.
nobody can see
She
her.
uses that. Yeah.
She
Yeah. Yeah.
uses
Yeah.
Morse code, and Archer's the only one who remembers it from, Federation School 101,
Yep.
Communication 101, right? So,
Hey, it
I,
happened in Space Camp. Do you remember Space Camp from 1986?
no.
They accidentally launched the space shuttle with a bunch of kids on board,
Oh,
and then they
right.
have to
Yeah,
figure out how to
yeah,
get them home.
yeah.
That's how they figure it out at one point. Is they're using like a telemetry switch to use Morse code, and finally they spot it on Earth.
Oh, okay.
Although
Cool.
I happened to be in the car this afternoon with my younger son, and he was saying something about Morse code, and I said, "Do you know any Morse code?" And he's like, "Well, I think the only thing you really need to know is SOS, right?" I said, "Yeah, but so few people know it. We got taught it as part of Boy Scouts. I don't know, like." I don't know where you learn Morse code anymore, and I don't know how many people would continue to know it. Maybe they teach it to you at Starfleet Academy because they're like, someday an alien's going to do something to your ship, and you're going to need to know Morse code.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think in Star Trek lore, but also I know in astronaut training they do survival training, right? Where you get dumped in the middle of nowhere with nothing but your shirt on your back, and you have to go from point A to point B. And part of that would be learning to do Morse code with a mirror or whatever as well, right? So as opposed to C3PO going over here. Like, doesn't C3PO know Morse code? He's a protocol droid. He knows 900 languages or something, right?
Yeah, he speaks this many languages, but he doesn't know how to say SOS.
SOS in Morse code.
Quickly, best quote was all the stuff that Dal said when he was trying to pretend to be Janeway. I changed my mind in a completely normal way, not a weird way. Or my brains are fine. I'm just busy thinking is all.
Right.
Yeah, those were good.
Yeah.
Should we jump on to Supernova?
Let's jump to Supernova Part 1.
So we ended the previous episode with Janeway back in her own body aboard the Dauntless, but stuck in the brig because they think that she has lost her marbles. And we end up with the Vaunakot basically they had basically sent the protostar with the construct inside it to the center of Federation space to try and drag in as many Starfleet ships as possible to try and stop it, so that when they turn the thing on, it will go as badly as possible for Starfleet as they can. So my elevator pitch was the Vaunakot make good on their long-awaited plan to turn Starfleet against itself. So this one was the setup piece. Hopefully it'll end a little nicer next week. But yeah, we basically saw what the protostar had been trying to avoid all this time, which was, once that connection's made, the construct will go off and the construct will start turning the Starfleet ships against itself. And that's what happens in this episode is, in spite of their best intentions, and even in spite of the best intentions of the diviner to try and stop it, he sort of has a bit of a change of heart, not, in this one. And it's actually Essentia, or I can't recall what her other name was, is the one who basically kills him. And, activates the thing and off it goes. And next thing you know, Starfleet ships are shooting each other out of the sky. And although that was an awful lot of shooting for a very little amount of explosions, like shouldn't those ships have just been toasted right away?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Like, why were they surviving? I mean, and they were almost like lightsaber lasering other hulls and stuff like that, and there weren't people floating out into space. And
yeah, I mean, if the goal is catastrophic destruction, it wouldn't be like disable, disable, disable. It would be like destroy, destroy, destroy. It felt like they were shooting each other a lot, but not really actually killing each other in quite as dramatic a way as you have expected. Although, again, we talked about this is kids friendly show, so you don't really need to see people being sucked out into the vacuum of space. These,
or
theoretically are the next generation of astronauts we're trying to recruit here. So
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, these are friendly lasers. Yeah, they weren't the hurting kind. Yeah, no, you're right. I totally didn't buy that whole destruct thing, but I guess with all their shields are down too, right? Like,
yeah, like it should have just been like pew 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 and everybody's dead. Like basically simultaneously everybody launches a photon torpedo or a quantum torpedo at each other's bridge, and that's the end of the game, right?
So I was kind of thinking, like, it's almost like, was this the blip that Discovery discovers, and the whole Federation's gone,
Yeah. Yeah, really. No. We discovered that one. That was because some kid had a temper tantrum, right?
Oh, was it?
Yeah. Do you remember that the kid was tied into the planet that has all the minerals on it? And
no, don't remember.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. All right.
Yep. Pew 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 is the Starfleet killing Starfleet. The Easter egg. So at one point when Janeway's in jail and she's trying to talk her guard into letting her out, the guard mentions, "Oh, actually, you saved my life once," and she mentions being a member of the Bernari. That's from an episode of Voyager called Counterpoint, where that the whole sort of story plays out. How basically they hid these 12 refugees inside the transport buffer to try and get them through this scary part of space because the people who lived in that space wanted to kill them.
Yeah.
And turns out she's supposed to be the now grown up version of that who now works for Starfleet, and so she sets Janeway free. But that leads to, and I'm going to give credit where credit's due, this is a big shout to our number one fan Xavier, who immediately at the end of the episode said, "So Janeway is in jail because everyone thinks that she's not fit for command and she's acting crazy. The guard lets her out. She takes off. She goes up to the bridge. Nobody stops her on the way. She goes up to the bridge, shows up on the bridge, and then immediately starts barking orders, and everybody's just like, cool, let's get in there. Nobody questions that she was just like absolutely a nut 2 hours ago.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Everyone's cool with it.
Yeah, I did have a similar question, but and you're right, because I mean, like, they're like, shouldn't you be in bed resting, kind of like, they weren't you, didn't you just come down with symptoms? Shouldn't you be not on the bridge right now, especially since the command crew would know the situation of their commander, right? So and the whole fit for command thing. And
wouldn't security stop her at some point and be like, maybe you should go lie down? They were just like, oh, she's acting normally, she's probably fine now. But that's a bit of a plot hole you could drive a bus through. So
well, and also I guess we'll have to go back and do some fact check on it, but the Star Trek Starfleet regulation that the guard quotes to her about section whatever of the Starfleet if you're a captain and you're a nut bar, we're going to put you in the brig.
Do it seems like to be a really, really weird sliding scale, because we've seen so many episodes of Star Trek over the years too, where clearly somebody, usually an admiral, is acting crazy and everyone's just giving them the longest leash possible. Janeway seems like she's just absent-minded in the last episode because of course Dal's inside her body, and they're like, put her in the brig. It just seems like there's a bit of an uneven playing field there, where if you're an admiral, you get to openly declare war on things and try and destroy the Federation and stuff, and they're like, Yeah, he's just having a weird day. It's fine. It's fine. He can get his coffee. He's fine.
And I think we talked about this before. Doesn't the Protostar doesn't seem to have a brig, because there's been a few episodes where we thought you should just let a person in the brig, like
Yeah.
we've talked about that. But the Easter egg in this one, I think, is the Ronnie Cox coming back as the
That's
Admiral.
Jellicoe, yeah.
Jellicoe, yeah. So
yeah.
because he gives
we saw him.
of course he gives the go ahead to start blasting at the other ship, right?
Yeah, that's that was one of my notes, was Jellicoe still a jackass.
Yeah,
I mean,
and isn't that
he was 20 years ago?
Isn't that the what's the name of the runabout that they use in, is it Voyager or Deep Space Nine, with that that ship, that the one smaller Starfleet ship that comes in the middle of things? Isn't that the style that they had on Deep Space Nine? Or because did Voyager have a runabout? I can't remember. Defiant.
Well, they had the Defiant. Yeah, it's like that sort of like heavy arms ship, right? Yeah, that's they had that on Deep Space Nine for a number of years, but we've seen that style of ship a few times.
Yeah.
Since then.
Cool.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, this one had some, definitely an eventful episode, as you'd expect. This is sort of the first half of a 2-part finale for season 1, and in theory, this is the end to actual season 1 as opposed to half of season 1, which is why we had this.
And it is definitely cliffhangery. I got my numbers mixed up. I thought this was the last episode, which is why I thought it ends on a really big cliffhanger, like almost like they did with Locutus, like where you end the season and you have to come back to see how it ends,
Yeah, and we'll see obviously where they leave us at the end of next episode. This one, there was some momentous moments in here. We had obviously the construct finally being used, so Starfleet turning against itself. We had Essentia basically revealing herself as this other character. And we got the Diviner dying and apparently becoming one with the Force.
Yeah.
Like
the midichlorians again, right? He broke up into midichlorians.
He goes off, and that was a weird
the whole conservation of energy thing, I guess, right? Yeah.
I guess.
Well, he kind of entered her forehead too, because she kind of lit up a bit when he did that too, right? Like his energy became hers or whatever.
Yeah, so I wonder if that might be a big sort of key part of the next episode. The other thing that we finally got was Dal makes a move on Gwyn. Obviously there'd been a little sort of chemistry brewing between those two characters for a while, and it wasn't really clear how that was going to play out. But she goes to tell him that as an augment he could never get into Starfleet, and he misreads it as, "Oh, I have something to tell you before we go risk our lives." And he makes his move and gives her a big smooch, and she looks horrified.
Yeah.
So I mean, lots of good stuff. I mean, that's always, of course, the sort of plus minus of these series is, how much of it is just sort of flotsam and how much of it is going to matter. And this episode, lots of stuff mattered. So that always makes for a good episode, and obviously sets us up for a nice finale for next week. Hopefully we get something good to sink our teeth into.
Yep. Cool. All right, let's move on to Willow. We got a couple episodes of Willow under our belt. I watched this one. It was kind of busy and late in the day when I watched it in Chicago. So I kind of this episode I'm talking about was the episode 4, was Whispers of Nockmaar.
Nockmaar,
yeah. Okay, this is the one where the young man gets possessed, right? And
Graydon,
and he tries to take over what's her name again? Alora Dannon.
Alora.
Yeah. So, and everybody, they go into this castle, and it's kind of like, don't go in there because it messes with your head, and then they all get their heads messed with, right? Surprise.
Yeah, again, this one, it's a well-worn trope. I mean, I had, my summary was basically, the Fellowship spends a night in a haunted castle complete with ghosts, monsters, and demonic possession. It really was, nothing that we haven't seen before as far as this kind of storytelling. Hey, we all have to return to this place, the place of evil. What's going to happen? Everybody has their own little personal journey in there. Obviously, for the different characters, it has different meaning. For Kit, this is where her evil grandmother was. For Alora, this is where she almost died.
Where she was born or something, right? I think.
and where she was born in the jail, right? So for her, there's lots of connections there. So there's a lot of sort of stuff to sort of sink your teeth into, and they all have some pretty interesting sort of journeys in that, because Kit has to sort of reconcile this sort of family history of evil. Jade has a moment there where she basically has a vision of General Kale, who was, of course, the sort of Darth Vader-y character from the original Willow movie. It was funny because it was cool to see Kale back, such a badass costume with the Bone Reaver mask and the big sword and everything. But they were clearly using the dialogue from the original Willow movie, so it's just like a lot of, because it was kind of funny, because I'm like, oh, I remember the scene where he actually makes that expression. But yeah, it was just filled with lots of Easter eggs. Alora goes down into the dungeons and has a vision of seeing her be born, and her mom theoretically seeing her in the future. That was kind of neat. Like at one point she's talking to the Queen Bavmorda in the flashback part, and then she's like, oh, I can feel her, she's here, I can hear her voice, she's stopped you, she's in the future, she's fine, or whatever. So yeah, that's kind of nice closed circle where it was kind of always very, very tragic that her mom is gives birth to her, convinces the nursemaid to smuggle her out, and then is immediately murdered. Giving her that sort of closure of, I know my daughter lives, I know my daughter's going to be okay, is a little nicer way to sort of wrap that. A little retcon, but not a terrible one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because in the original Willow movie, she's floating in the river like Moses, right, in the basket, and that's where
exactly
little kids
right.
find her.
Yeah. And then Graydon, when he's possessed, is sort of speaking in all kinds of weird ways. He's starting to slowly turn dark. And he starts quoting Madmartigan from the Willow movie at one point. He's like, get me some water, Peck. And it's Val Kilmer's voice coming out of Graydon.
Oh, really? Okay,
again,
cool.
Nice little sort of way to work it in there too, that, it would just be that much more creepy to get inside Willow's head by it being Madmartigan's voice coming out of Graydon. And of course, it all works out in the end. They have to spend the night in this haunted castle. In the end, they kind of all have their cathartic, moments. Alora figures out that she's quite good at the magic, and actually uses herself as basically a magic filter. She sucks the evil out of Graydon through his mouth. Interesting maneuver, and then sort of disperses it into the atmosphere above her. And then we get a couple of interesting little sort of side stories too, because we also get Boorman going around. He's trying to break into this locked room, trying to figure out what's inside. He hears all these voices calling to him, and
he loses his MacGuffin, or he thinks he has, right?
He thinks that they've stolen his MacGuffin, and so again, it's a lot of well-worn tropes, but done well, I think. It's nothing in that episode was really anything that I wouldn't have expected to have seen, but it was all really satisfying and well done. It was one of the stronger episodes so far. And the quotes were great. I mean, gosh, they give Boorman all the great quotes, but Bavmorda knew how to romp. Legendary parties, 3-4 days in a row, all kinds of weird expletive. Willow, the vermiscus goo, don't sniff it, don't wipe it, don't eat it. Why would we eat it, says Alora. Boorman, are you plundering my dead grandma's castle, says Kit. And then my favorite was, everybody deserves one good cry per quest, from Boorman. Yeah, so many good lines. The show's very smartly written, and I am starting to really like the characters the more we sort of get invested in them.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Which I think leads us into the latest
Well, did we talk about Graydon as a boy, like the whole him and his brother
no, that's
deal?
a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. So yes, at the end when Alora is removing the evil and making that connection with the evil inside him, she has a vision where she sees Graydon pushing his brother out of a tree, it seems, and killing him. And so we also get that vision at one point. She's trying to heal him, and she takes off his shirt, and he's got these brutal scars all over him. And she's like, "Oh my God, what's happening?" And he's like, "No, those were already there." And so that sets us up for the episode 5, where we find out sort of what happened with him. So episode 5, which is Wildwood. So the basically the end of episode 5, we see the Gales reappear, these monstrous creatures, the fellow with the cage on his head, the one who looks like an evil bird. They all show up, and so the episode starts with them doing this sort of big chase through the ruins outside of Nockmaar, and they decide to make a break for it into Wildwood. And so yeah, my elevator pitch was the Fellowship hides from the Gales in Mirkwood, Wildwood Forest, and discover Jade's true origins, and then they take some drugs. So they go inside this forest, which I'm sorry is just a dead ringer for Mirkwood. And they are in there. They end up encountering the Bone Reavers, who we met in the first episode, and the Bone Reavers take them prisoner, and they separate them. So they put Alora and Kit together. They put Willow and Graydon together, and then they take Jade for some questioning. And through this process, we get some interesting dynamics because Kit and Alora have had a little tension between the two of them. And, so they have a really sort of good talk about where they're at. And then in the cage with Willow and Graydon's worried that now Alora hates him because he was evil and possessed and scared her. And we also
he's definitely got a thing for her, which I missed when that developed, right? So
yeah, it seemed like it was creeping up over the past couple of episodes. There was a few sort of little, long glances and him saying nice things, and it seemed like there was more growing there. Now, we've known that there's a bit of a weird dynamic in there because she was in love with Eric, the prince, but then she's obviously learned a lot about herself on this quest, and so that sort of changed some of the dynamics. We know that Graydon was supposed to marry Kit as part of the sort of merger of the two kingdoms, but we also know that Kit and Jade are in love with one another, and that comes to a head in this episode. So yeah, there's a lot of complexities that there were not in the previous Fellowship that we make reference to. There was at no point, as far as I know it, that the hobbits and the elves and the dwarves all paired off. But in this one, there's a lot more sort of romantic dynamics and other things that come into play, which make it kind of fun and definitely feels younger. It definitely feels more sort of YA romance kind of vibe to it. So
you missed the Borman in the tent with the leader character.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. So we encounter the leader, which is Venema Scorpia, which is a great name. Venema Scorpia. She has a history with Borman, who we learn his first name is Thraxus Borman. And so she basically takes Borman in there and is, clearly the two of them are both into each other, but then you're not really sure what the history is. And then we start to learn a little bit more about that. And then the truth starts to come out about, exactly who and where Jade is from. And we find out that Jade is actually Venema's sister, and that they are both General Kale's children, which is kind of messed up because Kale in the movies is a psychopathic killer who, is merciless and cruel and everything else. We learn that in the era of the original Willow movie that they were basically conscripted and they were, forced to fight for Nockmaar, and that once the war was over, that the other forces of good basically blamed them, and so they basically were driven into this forest as their sort of hiding place, and they've continued to sort of be these bandits and
Robin Hood sort of merry men sort of thing.
Yeah, because they really didn't have anywhere else to go. They kind of had only themselves to rely on, and so they sort of evolved this
sort of gypsy-ish, I guess, too. Yeah.
Well, they wear the skull face masks and stuff to scare people. They really don't seem that bad, but they really are sort of focused on, like keeping everyone away from their little corner of the universe. So inside the jail cells, Willow and Graydon happen to notice these little houses on the side wall, and brownies. So we knew at some point we were going to get something from the world of the brownies. And so, of course, we get Rule, who is Kevin Pollak, played in the original movie. And here we get to meet him again. And his daughter, which is kind of neat, Ganoush. And we learned that Fran Jean, the other character from Willow, has long since gone missing because Rule stole his wife and married her. And so, they basically, have a little interaction, a nice little sort of, back and forth. And then we also learn in the girls' cage that Alora has taken the wand of Shalindria, and she's like, I think I know a spell that can get us out of here. And she ends up using basically like a very powerful spell to blow the doors off the cage. And they all end up escaping simultaneously, but they realize basically at the same time that escaping doesn't necessarily mean anything, because now that Jade is part of the tribe, they are all guests, and they decide to have this big welcoming party where they welcome Jade back and have a good time. And they're basically doing shots, and so everybody's like, shots. And so they take these shots of whatever they are, and it turns out that they are truth plums, so that they all can't lie. And so everybody has a confession about, what's up. And so Alora confesses to Graydon that she saw the vision of him pushing his brother out of the tree, and he has to explain that that was the first time he was possessed, as opposed to the second time he was most recently possessed, and that he would never have hurt his brother, but he was possessed at the time.
That's a good. I have to remember that if I ever get, put on trial for murder.
I was possessed. That's a good one. Yeah. We get obviously Kit and Jade, who have been sort of will they, won't they. Finally, they both confess their love for one another, and so they finally share a passionate kiss and declare their love for one another, which is very sweet. Borman, who of course has been very sort of hard to read, confesses that he actually was ashamed to come back and see Scorpia after he failed on his previous mission, and that the reason he didn't come back was because he was afraid that she would reject him. And so again, we get a little bit more honesty from him than we're used to, so that was kind of fun. And and then Willow confesses that he's not a great wizard, which Alora overhears. Right. So that's potentially a little impactful.
Oops.
Yeah. So and then just when things are starting to get kind of interesting with all these confessions, we get trolls. And we had previously seen trolls in the Willow movie, but here we get what seems to be a large contingent of trolls, and and they start picking people off. So the episode basically ends with invasion of the trolls, and we cut to extremely modern music once again.
Yeah, which is kind of weird, but yeah. I was thinking about that. There was a couple of songs in this episode which were like, they're new. I mean, they're newer,
Well, Crimson and Clover plays during the romantic scenes in the Bone Reaver village and stuff. And I was trying to figure out, because I sat down and started watching this one yesterday, and my wife said, "Oh, what are you watching?" I said, "I'm watching Willow." And she said, "Oh, I'll watch with you for a little bit." And she sat down and she watched the first 20-25 minutes of it, and she said, it's very strange how they've got this contemporary music in this show. And I said, the only reason that I can figure that they try to do that is, well, there's two good reasons. One, they know they're coming out right on the heels of House of the Dragon and the Lord of the Rings of Power series, so they kind of need something to differentiate it. And part of that is contemporary speech. They speak in a much more contemporary way than those other two shows. Their references, vulgarity, they swear. And the other is the application of that modern music. I think the idea is it feels a little bit like, do you remember the movie A Knight's Tale with Heath Ledger?
Yeah.
It feels a little bit like that, where they're trying to sort of mix those up a little bit just so that it feels a little fresh for maybe a younger audience. And I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I know I've seen some
I didn't
critical
like it
stuff
in The Knight's Tale.
online.
I found it I didn't like that in The Knight's Tale. It's funny that because if you remember about 3, 4 episodes of Willow, I mentioned that the music wasn't contemporary, but it was kind of like Princess Bride-ish. That's a kind of, not
Yeah.
quite John
Although
Williams, but sort of like fitting with the time, but more cartoonish than epic.
but since then they've done like Black Hole Sun, a cover of Black Hole Sun by Soundgarden. They've done like some, they did a Metallica cover. It's definitely even more so, I would say, than what we saw with Princess Bride. It's definitely meant to evoke a certain memory using those songs.
Is it meant to hook people from the 90s and
I
2000s,
I
you think?
I'm curious. It's a strange show because I would have said, oh, they're going to target it at people who are nostalgic for this original project, but I don't think that's true anymore. I think they're kind of treating treating it as its own thing, and it seems to me very much more catered to a millennial or Gen Alpha kind of audience. The queer couple, the love triangle between the three, between Graydon and Alora and Eric, the language, the music. To me, it seems like it's a little bit of a different type of feel than I think I was expecting. Willow doesn't take itself nearly as serious as something like Fellowship of the Ring or Lord of the Rings, but it was always a little bit more earnest. This feels a little more casual, flippant, playful. And again, not in a completely negative way. It's not like I don't like it. It's definitely a different vibe than I was expecting, but not one that I'm turned off by. I have seen some conversations online with people who are turned off by it. They're like, well, this is not my Willow. I'm like, stop watching. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious though. So we're 5 episodes in, we've got 3 to go. I'll be curious to see as we start climbing through these last 3 episodes, whether we're going to see it try and wrap itself up in a bow, or whether this is clearly catered towards having a second or second and third or fourth or fifth or whatever season of this. It felt like they were moving at a pretty brisk pace for the first 3 episodes, and then these last 2 episodes were really kind of contained, right? It was like, we're moving here, we're going there, we're traveling here, we're picking up this person, oh, that person died, we're kind of doing stuff. And then Nockmaar was sort of self-contained. This was all self-contained inside this village. It seems like the pace is really slowed down, and I think, okay, so are we ramping back up for 3 episodes? Like, are we supposed to get all the way across the sea to the city, get Eric, rescue him, stop the crone, and do all this stuff in 3 episodes? Like, are we getting into classic Disney Plus hold my beer territory?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's always a question, right?
Yeah, and I don't know.
Or
I don't know if
are
I'm
they gonna resolve? Are they meant to resolve this in the first season, or are we looking at season 2 and season 3? What's the story here?
Well, I mean, we talked about it on, I think, either the last episode or the episode before that, that there's a possibility that Val Kilmer might be able to come back if they do a second season. I don't know. I don't know if it's something where season 2 is always sort of a hope or a whim or in the cards, or if they've scripted it that way. I'll be really curious to see if this comes to a satisfying one season conclusion, or if they're going to set it up for season 2, the quest to find Mad Mardigan, or however they want to play it. But I would watch more of this. I'm enjoying it so far. It's not everything I was necessarily hoping for, but I like the new characters. I like some of the adventures. I like that it's a very diverse show. There's lots of different faces and colors of people, and I like that there's a queer storyline at the center of it. I think that those are all welcome additions, especially on Disney Plus, which tends to be a little vanilla. I think these are all good things. So I'll take more.
So the character with the cage on his head is the
Yeah,
Scourge.
the Scourge. Yeah,
The
yeah.
Scourge. He's played by Jonas Suotamo, the new Chewbacca.
Chewbacca. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. There's no pictures of him
yeah,
as that character, but he's listed here in the credits. So
yeah.
I assume he's the big guy
Yeah,
with the
Oh
cage on
yeah,
his head because he's the tallest person in the show, right?
yeah, yeah. He does a pretty good job. They've done a good job of using good camera angles and stuff with him too, just to make him look even more gigantic and
Yeah,
menacing. The
yeah.
part where he's standing on the fence and he's looking down at them, and yeah, there's some good stuff in there. But
Cool.
yeah, it's good. I'm enjoying it. I still I'll be curious to see how they wrap it. I think this is the bottom line. I'll be curious to
Cool.
see how they finish this up.
All right. Well, let's move on to the watch list, but I'm gonna let you go first because I got a couple of things here and you've got two. So
All righty. So yeah, I basically just listed off a couple things that I'm headed into the Christmas break like so many other people, or the holiday break, I should say. And I noticed a couple things that are sort of showing up on my streaming services over the next week. I'm interested in seeing Glass Onion. I know you had a chance to see that during the Toronto International Film Festival, but I wasn't so lucky. So
it's in the
that's
theaters. Like
debuting.
I think it was in the theater. You're not gonna go see it in the theater with your wife, Sherry?
I don't think so. I think we'd be just as fine. I watched the first one on Netflix when it first came out, and
Oh,
I enjoyed
I
it
thought you saw it in
there.
the theater though.
She did.
Oh,
She
she
saw
did.
it, but
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I mean, I'm sure it's probably cool on a big screen, but it is what it is. So that one's on my to watch list. That comes out on Netflix this week. And then Black Adam showed up on the Crave streaming platform here in Canada. I imagine it's probably on HBO Max in the States. So that one, again, it's kind of a strange one where I know in the end it essentially is going to mean nothing. It sounds like we're not getting any more Black Adam movies. It sounds like the teaser at the end with Superman is going to amount to nothing. But I like some of the other characters in it. I like Hawkman and Dr. Fate and Atom Smasher and some of the other stuff they're doing. So I will definitely try and make some time to watch that sometime over the holidays as well and see if I can get into that. I did want to mention, I did finish a series that I had started a number of years ago. I had started this series that was on FXX called Man Seeking Woman. It stars Jay Baruchel as this. It's based on a book about this guy who's basically he's dumped by his girlfriend, and then he has this sort of series of tragic misadventures as he's trying to re-enter the world of dating and trying to find the right girl and everything like that, which at its root sounds really simple, but it's essentially a sci-fi show because what happens in each episode is it becomes a hyper version of whatever's happening. So at one point he gets set up on a blind date and he shows up and the date is a literal troll sitting at the table. And it's like in full prosthetic makeup, the whole bit, a troll. And it's like, throwing food around and everything else. And it's supposed to be, of course, a symbol of how bad a first blind date can
Oh,
go
I
and
get it.
blah, blah,
Oh, I
blah.
get you. Right, right.
So all the episodes are like that. So at one point he goes to a destination wedding and the destination is hell. And they literally have to go like down to the fires of hell for this destination wedding. There's so many funny metaphors, just brought to these like extreme levels throughout the show where this guy, Josh, played by Jay Baruchel, and his best friend, are going through this sort of experience of dating, and they flip it a couple times. His sister is one of the main characters on the show, and so they do Woman Seeking Man. They do episodes focused on her and her relationships.
Mm-hmm.
It was obviously Jay's Canadians from Montreal, and it was made here. The show was shot in Toronto. You can see Toronto all over this thing. It's not meant to be Toronto. It's supposed to be some generic American city, but it's a highly Canadian show. So many guest stars over the course of its three season run, and it is an absolute riot. Highly, highly recommend. It's funny. I was laughing so loud the other night. I was afraid I was going to wake people up. I was laughing so hard at some of the stuff going on. I had watched the first season before, but I'd never gone back and watched season 2 and 3. It's on Disney Plus here in Canada because, of course, FX content ends up there. I don't know where it's airing in the States, so you might have to go digging for it. But it's a great blend of humor and sci-fi. It's got so many great cameos and guest stars. At one point, I think almost all the kids in the hall are in it at one point or another as guest stars. One of them's a regular. Super, super, super funny show. Highly recommend. If you get a chance, it's 3 seasons. They're half-hour episodes. You can get through it pretty quick, but you will laugh a lot. So recommend that one.
So is it like it's older, or it's like it's already run and?
It's finished its run. I think it ran from like 2016 to 2019 or
Oh, it's a few. There's a few
2020.
seasons of it, right?
There's three
Oh, okay.
seasons, 10 episodes apiece, 30 minutes apiece.
And
So
that's on
yeah.
the Netflix or?
No. Disney Plus here in Canada.
Oh, okay. I'll check that one out. Cool. Sounds interesting.
It's it's really easy to get sucked into it. It's just so it's genuinely absurdist, but in the best way.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, my watch list thing. So this new actor's come out. Like he's pretty good. He's a lot of people seem to like him. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's called. I want to make sure I get the name, pronounce the name correctly. I think it's Tom Cruise.
Never heard of him.
Well, anyway,
Jackass.
so this is a teaser for the new MI7, which I didn't know was coming out. But I mean, but who didn't know MI7 wasn't coming out? And of course, he typical Tom Cruise, he goes over the top again. I swear, one of our headlines is going to be Tom Cruise tragic accident, making a movie, right? Because he's insane, first of all, right?
It depends which one of us is writing that story headline.
Well, it's true, but yeah. But it's interesting because there's a scene in this movie where he's driving a motorcycle. I mean, I haven't seen the scene because he's setting up the stunt, right? And it's got to be like a 10-minute long sort of making of kind of movie where he's got to learn how to drive a moped. So they set up a course for him to learn how to do jumps and stuff like that, and all these kind of like specialized motocross jumps. And he's also learning. I mean, he does a lot of skydiving and stuff like that, as we know from other movies he's done. And hanging on the sides of planes. I know you haven't seen that one, but he in this one he has to learn how to base jump, right? Where you jump off a cliff into a bowl and then you pull your chute. And at least he's not doing the flying suit thing, which is I'm sure that's coming in the next movie for sure. I guarantee it, right? I mean, if Sean Connery can fake, skiing down a hill with machine guns, I'm sure Tom Cruise has got that planned out for his future movies. Anyway, so the scene that they're setting up is he's driving this motorcycle, and it's kind of like, the beginning of the Star Trek movie where the kid steals his dad's Corvette, Jon Favreau's Corvette,
Abrams.
and he gets to the end and he kind of just goes over the cliff. So you see, as a scene they show him where kind of like a spoiler scene, I guess. They see him pulling the mic up and kind of like stopping at this cliff and kind of looking over. So clearly the setup is he goes back, he takes a run at it, and of course, conveniently, I whenever I ride a motorcycle, I always have a packed parachute on my back, right?
Sure. Yeah, as you do,
right? So he, so the stunt is he has to learn how to and they do it in several steps. Like he learns how to go off a ramp and let go of the bike, and he's got a harness on, so he's being held up, and he's just perfecting that move. Like they must do it like 100 times. And then he's also doing the base jumping stuff with the parachutes, and so they combine the two things where he drives this bike down this ramp, hits it at the right speed, goes off the center, lets go of the bike, falls a little bit, and then pulls the chute and flies away. And then they're like, let's do that again. Like, who does that? Oh wait, Tom Cruise does, but
crazy people, Tim.
Yeah, crazy people. Yeah, crazy people with more money than brains do this. So apparently he goes back and does it a few times to get it right, or get the shot, or get the light, or whatever it is they need to do. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, whenever I watch old Star Trek and I see William Shatner or I was watching one episode a couple of weeks ago, and I got to go back and find it. But you know how whenever they had a fight, like even in Batman, the Batman TV show, when they had a fight, it was clearly a different actor. Like they didn't even bother about the body shape, right? I was so there's a stunt man who used to be Kirk's double when he was fighting, right? And I was watching another episode where a completely different person was in a fight, and they flash over to the scene where the guy's throwing the guy up against the wall, and it's Kirk's double, or William Shatner's double, is throwing but he's like dressed as McCoy or something. It was like I went like, I could buy the same guy being Kirk all the time and the same guy being Spock all the time, but like this was like so wrong,
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
take the complete opposite. So Tom Cruise is doing the complete opposite of this. Like, Linda Hamilton, I think it's Terminator 2 where she's on fire.
Yeah.
Well, I know in a lot of cases Linda Hamilton has a twin sister and they used her as a body double, but there's a scene where she's on fire and they CG'd her face onto the character being burned rather than putting fire on Linda Hamilton.
Yeah.
I'm sure if Tom Cruise had to film that scene, that would be Tom Cruise in that scene.
If
And
he
the headline
needs somebody
would be
with a book
Tom
of
Cruise.
matches, I'm available. I'm just saying, if he needs somebody with some kerosene and a box of matches, I'll volunteer.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's fascinating. If you're a fan, and of course they've got the Mission Impossible music playing in the middle of this thing, right? So yeah, it's a good. If you got 10 minutes to waste, I mean, he does nothing but make these really amazing trailers. Even if you never go see the movie, or ever will see the movies. Anyway, but and I don't know. I don't know if you're missing out on something or not.
I wouldn't say I'm missing it so much.
Yeah. Well, I can clear because it's written all over your face that you're not missing this at all, right? So
I gotta say, just for clarity's sake, and for the in the spirit of the holidays, my son for Christmas has asked for a bunch of 4K movies.
Has he asked for any Mission Impossible movies, or?
He is not. However, he asked for a bunch of 4K movies that he has not necessarily seen, but he's heard of that are really good in 4K.
Maybe on a podcast.
Music, though.
Yeah.
Possibly those. So on the list are several Tom Cruise movies, in defiance of both his father and the will of nature. He's asked for several of these Tom Cruise movies, and I keep thinking, it's like a virus. He's unavoidable. Like he's weaseling his way into my house. He's unavoidable.
Which movie? Can I ask which movies he's? I know he's asked for. I can't mention one that I know of, but what other ones has he asked for?
He asked for Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah, that's a good movie.
Edge of Tomorrow, and he asked for.
I've watched that. Believe it or not, I've Edge of Tomorrow, when that one's on, I watched every single time. It is so well written and so well done.
That's one of the, to be fair, again, I don't enjoy Tom Cruise because I think he's a terrible, and I mean this genuinely, terrible actor.
Yeah.
A movie star he is for sure.
Yeah.
He's a terrible actor. I never believe that he is who he says he is.
Yeah.
Because he's a terrible actor. He's just a movie star.
Yeah. What's John Krasinski's wife now? Emily Blunt. Emily Blunt is amazing in that movie. That's the reason to watch that movie.
And that's the only, there's been a few movies over the years that I've really wanted to see in spite of him, because I love Emily Blunt. I think she's super talented, and I have enjoyed her work a lot. And so that one's been on my list. There's been a few on my list.
War of the Worlds is a good movie too. Is that on his list?
It is not. I'm just going to look it up. I have the list right here. So yeah, it was, let's see. Yeah, Live, Die, Repeat, Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Top Gun, both movies. Top Gun.
Okay. The first one's not worth owning, but yeah.
And then lots of other sort of war movies in here. No other Tom Cruise movies, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But some Marky Mark movies in here and a few other things too. So
yeah. I like Vanilla Sky. I have that one on Blu-ray. I can lend him that one. That's a really good movie.
But that's I mean, and
but you don't even know it's Tom Cruise for the half. Well, I mean, think about it this way, right? For most of the movie, he's wearing a mask.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, did Tom Cruise really even need to wear a mask, right?
Yeah. I mean, and again, I think I'm trying to remember the last Tom Cruise movie I saw. It was probably Magnolia.
Well, that was a horrible movie, though.
It's a better movie than it gets credit for. I like Paul Thomas Anderson. It's been a good 20 years since I've seen a Tom Cruise movie. I liked Jerry Maguire. I did see that, and I actually thought that was one of the times I found him the least off-putting, but the movie is better than he is. It's a better script than he brings it to life, frankly. But yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen a Tom Cruise movie, and I know he's made movies that I'm sure are great.
Yeah.
I like a lot of the people he works with. I like a lot of the filmmakers he works with.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're good movies. I find him very off-putting.
I know.
More
Well,
so
I
than
find I
probably
think I'm the
anybody
same way with
else.
Nicolas Cage too. I like the movies that he's in, but I don't like him as an actor. Like, yeah, I mean, and I, um, I like, like what's it, moonlighting,
Moonstruck.
what's Moonstruck? Yeah, I watched that one because
Moonstruck.
Cher is amazing in that one, and all
Yeah.
the it's her parents as well. But
But it depends on the movie. Again,
like
he's
I hate
had some
Face Off is probably
performances.
the one movie I hate the most. It's got
Oh, but
John
it's
Travolta
so
and
bonkers. It's
yeah,
so
but it's an
bonkers,
Ang
though.
Lee movie, which is like supposed to be good,
I've seen it before. Yeah, and then Con Air is again
Oh,
like
Con
just
Air,
an
please, yeah.
all-timer. It's an all-timer, just cringy, awful, but like way over the top movie. I but then Leaving Las Vegas, for which he won his
Yeah, that was a good
Oscar,
one. Yeah, yeah. But she was really good in that though.
he's incredible in that movie. I mean, she's better than he is, but he's incredible in that movie. It's just, somewhere along the lines, he just sort of went very, very far off the rails. And sorry, so is Tom Cruise. Like, he's a very off balance person. Do you know Tom Cruise is 60? He's 60 years old, 60.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
That's what I'm saying. He's insane. Like I wouldn't do what he does. Like even
I wouldn't do what he says, and I'm in my 40s.
yeah, yeah, yeah. 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 Hmm.
But
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, no,
But
it's
he's still playing the kid that
more
never
power to
grew
him.
up. He's still playing Peter Pan, that's the thing, right? So
It's because he's 5'4".
that's true. Yeah, he is Peter Pan. That's true. Yeah.
He's a little guy. Little guy.
Yeah. It's watching I haven't seen every episode of Friends, but every now and then when it's on and I saw one the other day where Joey and Chandler are walking and it's like they're going to a premiere or something like that and he says to Chandler, "Can you bend down? You're too tall. You're taller than I am." Yeah, I know
Yeah.
when you have to put, Tom, when you have to put Tom on a soapbox so he can, stand next to a woman and be the same height as her, like that's okay, that's enough. Enough practical
Yeah,
effects for me.
it's when they're casting actresses who are under 5 feet so that they look proportionally appropriate with him.
Yeah,
It's crossing some lines.
So okay, I got a couple of things I'm going to go through real quick. So speaking of the same actress in these two movies, Chloe, what's her name? Grace Moretz, is that her name?
Yep.
Yeah.
Chloe Smith. Yep.
Yeah, the Peripheral finale. I just finished watching it. If you haven't seen it yet, it's so you can sit down and binge it. Really interesting concept. I don't know if I was really satisfied with the ending. It kind of gets sort of matrixy revolutions in near the end of it, sort of thing. It's coming back for another season. There's sort of a bit of a cliffhanger at the end of that episode. So it's an interesting idea. That's the one where she puts on a game headset and ends up not so much in a VR, but she's actually in the future in a robot body kind of thing. Somehow they time travel through the future or whatever. I don't know, special networking cable they use or whatever. But I also saw at the same time, just came out. I watched this yesterday. Was a movie called Mother Android, which starts out pretty interesting concept. It's basically the whole society has these androids that help them in their houses, and all of a sudden there's a glitch, something happens, a power failure or whatever. They all turn evil. They all turn into zombie robots because that's what androids do, and it kind of gets a little unbelievable. But so I mean, I very rarely give a movie a 3-star, and I was struggling to give it a 3-star rating out of 5. So it's an interesting movie, but yeah, if there are other things you want to watch other than that, I would highly recommend you watch those other things.
What platform is that on?
It is on, I believe it's on the Netflix. Well, actually, Netflix or Prime? No, Netflix. I think the Peripheral's on Prime. Right. Yeah. So that's cool. And I'm almost finished watching The Expanse. Again, I'm not 100% sold on. It's nice. It's pretty. Whatever. I think the first couple of episodes were the ones when it was on regular TV were good. This one's kind of getting a little long in the tooth, right? So, but But before we go, I want to ask you something. So on the other show, on More Than Just Code, I started doing while you were on Roundabout with me and Tammy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we used to have these questions we did at the end of the show, right?
Oh, I
And so
remember the questions.
yeah, so I've gone back to the like those questions were written by Tammy, right? And they were sort of loosely based on the Marcel Proust questionnaire, which she'd never heard of. I don't know how she came up with these questions, but so but I've mixed this in with the Stephen Colbert questions that he's doing. I don't know if you've seen those on his show where he
Yeah.
takes it and it's all about, becoming known. So I want to take an opportunity here to ask you some of these questions. And apologies to those of you who've listened to Roundabout if I happen to hit across the same question again. So it's a bit of Marcel Proust mixed in with Stephen Colbert.
Okay.
All right.
Shoot.
All right. So let's go with who are your favorite writers?
Who are my favorite writers? Alan Moore, Garth Ennis, Grant Morrison, John Wyndham, Gregory MacDonald. How many am I supposed to list?
Doesn't matter. Do they have? Is there connecting? Are they all graphic novel writers, perchance?
Nope.
No?
No, I mean some of them are, but some of them also write prose, and then some of them are just completely prose writers.
Okay. All right. What is the best sandwich?
Ooh, what is the best sandwich? My personal favorite sandwich, which may not be the exact same question, but I like if I could pick any sandwich out for my favorite, if it's done right, is a Reuben. I love a Reuben.
Okay, is that with the corned beef and the sauerkraut and
Corned beef, sauerkraut, dressing, rye bread, light or dark, I'm easy. Nice pickle, nice sour pickle with it.
cool.
Yeah,
All right.
that's my jam.
All right. Where would you most like to live?
Where would I most like to live? Is this like a philosophical question, or is this a physicality question, or is that the whole Proust of it all?
Well, that's
In a
yeah.
state of bliss, Tim, in a state of bliss. No, if I had my brother, I don't know. I've traveled the world. I've seen lots of things. I like it here. I could do without the -40. I could do without the +40, but the part in between is really nice.
Okay, cool. Window or aisle?
I'm going to say window, and I say that as somebody who is quite tall and has more than once been hit in the elbow and or knee and or foot with a trolley cart.
Yeah, I'm
So
probably the same way with that. Apples or
yeah,
oranges?
apples.
Apples. Okay, because you can put
Yeah.
peanut butter on an apple, or
No, I find oranges is an unpredictable. This I'm sure is a great psychological question for me. I find apples easier to eat because they stay intact. I find oranges to be unpredictably messy. I actually had an orange last night, and it was my first mandarin or satsuma of the year.
Christmas orange. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep, and it was delicious, but oh, what a mess it made! It was so hard to remove from its skin and made a huge, disgusting mess. And in spite of the fact that it was probably tastier than the average apple, it was not worth the effort. So I'm going to say apples.
Okay. So, what's your favorite word?
Ooh, my favorite word. Ooh, that's a good one.
That's like asking me what my favorite color is, right?
Yeah. Ask an artist what their favorite color is. Ask a wordsmith what his favorite word is. Boy. This is anti-disestablishmentarianism. I don't know.
That used to be the longest word in the English language. Yeah.
It used to be. It's not anymore. I'm going to say free. Free is a good word. Free has a lot of positive connotations to it. I like free.
Free. Okay, cool. What words or phrases do you overuse the most?
Ooh, do I overuse the most? Well, some of them I can't list on this podcast or we'll get an M rating. Uh, I have been known as a longtime former journalist to use some colorful expletives in my vocation. Um, yeah, I would say it would start with an F, would probably be the one that I use the most, that I need to not use the most. That would probably be very high on the list.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a question that's kind of well, I'll ask it anyway. Have you ever asked anyone for their autograph?
Have I ever asked? Well, yeah, sure. Sure. I did
I know you've
that,
had, I know you've had sketches and stuff done in books and things, so it's kind of an odd question for you because not everybody does that.
yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I've certainly I have never run into a celebrity on the street. I've never run into an athlete or a celebrity during my work and asked them for an autograph. Not ever. But I have gone to like events where they are being paid to do so, where I have gotten their autographs as a paying customer.
So what would be your favorite one or your most cherished one?
I have a book on my shelf. Oh, let's see. It's that book right there is a book of Will Eisner art, and Will Eisner signed it to me. And I did have a chance to have a bit of a conversation with him when I met him. Will Eisner, for those who don't know, is sort of the godfather of comic storytelling. He was one of the first people to really kind of take it seriously and not just pulp out pulp for kids. He was kind of trying to do something bigger and trying to sort of do graphic storytelling that was kind of bigger than that. And so yeah, Will Eisner was kind of an icon and a legend, and somebody who it was a real, yeah, I don't get starstruck very often, but standing across from somebody like Will Eisner was a real like, oh my God moment for me. I've had a chance to meet and speak with lots and lots of people over the years. Some I've met in person, some I met, just obviously these kind of conversations or on a phone or whatever. So maybe it was just because we were in the same space, but that one really kind of left an impression on me. I've definitely I have a lot of reverence for the people who sort of, laid the path to where we are now with, nerds ruling the box offices and the televisions and everything else. And people like Will Eisner don't necessarily get enough credit for the trails that they blazed, especially for sort of non-comic nerdy types like me.
Okay, cool. What's the one thing you own that you really should throw out? Only one, John.
One thing. And I'm not allowed to say my eldest son, who's old enough to live on his own, right? One thing that I own that I really ought to throw out. I have a propensity for keeping, because I was and always have been a toy collector, comic collector, stuff like that. I tend to collect the bric-a-brac of that too. So things like boxes for Lego sets and stuff like that. I just flatten them out and keep them. I don't necessarily just throw them into the recycle, because I have seen how this thing goes, that, somewhere down the road, someone will be like, oh, I'll pay you X dollars just for the box.
King's Ransom, exactly. Yeah. I just bought a box behind me. You can see an iPhone box back there, original iPhone behind Gumby there. Yep. I paid close to $250 for that box.
Yeah. So that's, and I've seen that happen numerous times, and it kind of got stuck in my head. So I have a ridiculous, and my wife would definitely call it ridiculous, amount of boxes for things. I have boxes for all my video game systems, tracing back, 30 years. I have all the boxes for those. I have all the
You're
boxes
saying you should throw these out, Legos. Or one in particular?
I'm saying that, yeah, there probably is a line somewhere where I've crossed the line and I'm keeping boxes that are completely unnecessary or unneeded or whatever, but I just can't bring myself to toss them, because I'm sure at some point I'll be like, oh, I used to have the box for that, and now it's selling for X dollars, and I'll regret it. But I probably should stop.
No, definitely the Lego
Uh,
boxes you should keep for sure. That's for sure. Um,
yeah. So
got a couple more. Let's see. Actually, I want to know. I want to know what. Well, a couple. Yeah. What do you think happens to us when we die?
ooh, that's a good one. Well, so I am I'm at best agnostic, but probably I'm not an atheist. I don't actively practice anti-religion or anything like that. And it's such a trope to say I'm a spiritual person. I'm not. I'm not a spiritual person. Um, I think I'm too much of a pragmatist to think anything other than we die and disappear and that's the end of us. But then I also understand enough about science to understand that energy can't be destroyed and we are creatures of energy. So to me, it seems completely unlikely that all that we are simply just extinguishes. That doesn't make scientific sense to me either. If I had to guess, I would say our corporeal bodies do in fact die and do in fact rot and whatever. But I think it's safe to say that whatever the energy inside us could just go off into the universe. And, you know, I don't think we're conscious. I don't think we're anything, but I do think that there's a possibility that that which is us, you know, goes off and rejoins the universe from whence we came.
Okay, cool.
I'd like your answer to that one down the road too. You can save that one up for the holidays.
I can give you my answer right now, but um, you only get listen to one song for the rest of your life. What is it?
Oh, oy, oy, oy. So it's essentially what's your favorite song, right?
No, no. I mean, this is you're going to go to like a desert island with one song in your MP3 player, and you have to listen to that for the rest of your life. No internet, no downloading, no
Yeah.
Amazon. It's a completely realistic question.
Sure, sure, this happens because there's probably a charger on the island somewhere. I think
You have to make a coconut generator to make the power for the battery, right?
well, luckily after watching all those Gilligan's Island reruns when I was a kid, I should be able to figure that out. The professor taught me well. My probably one of my all-time favorite songs is an instrumental version of the Jimi Hendrix song Little Wing by Stevie Ray Vaughan. I play that one constantly, both on my, headphones and in my stereo. It's a longer song. It's got a lot of different sort of tempos and a lot to it. And it's just a beautiful artistic achievement in that this exquisite person playing an exquisite song by another exquisite guitar player, probably even better. To me, that is sort of the high watermark of his work. And I don't know if I could ever get bored of that because it's just so stirring to me.
Right. Cool. What number am I thinking of?
7.
You're pretty close. I was actually thinking about seven about 3 minutes ago, but I figured you might have figured out what number I am thinking. It is related to seven though. Seven's in it.
Is it
I'll
42?
give you that much. Huh?
Is it 42?
No.
37. In a
37
row?
in a row? Exactly. Um, yeah, I said it was. Oh, what's the most used app on your phone? I mean, there's an app you can now use to figure that out, but I just without looking.
What's the most used app on my phone? It would be somewhere between music, podcasts, and Google. Those would be my guesses. If I
Well,
had to,
Google Chrome or Safari, you mean? Let's not give credit where it's not due.
well, the Google app, whatever that is. Isn't there a Google app? I have the Google app.
Yeah, there's a Google app.
Yeah, I would say it's somewhere between music and podcasts and Google. If I had to probably boil it down, I would say it's probably podcasts. As we talked about in a previous episode, I devour a large amount of news and information podcasts each week. So it's probably the thing that is on the most.
Okay.
Yeah.
Describe the rest of your life in 5 words.
hopefully very peaceful. Thank you.
Thanks for coming out. All right, cool. So do you want to hear my
Oh
thoughts on
yeah,
death? Okay, so
yeah,
I have a
yeah.
couple actually, but this is a long one. This is one I got from Dr. Brian Cox, right?
Hmm.
He says, you want a physicist to speak at your funeral. You want the physicist to talk to your grieving family about the conservation of energy, which you mentioned. So they will understand that energy has not died. You want the physicist to remind your sobbing mother about the first law of thermodynamics, that no energy ever gets created in the universe and none is ever destroyed. You want your mother to know that your energy, every vibration, every BTU of heat, every wave of energy, every particle, that her beloved child remains in with her in this world. You want the physicist to tell your weeping father that amid the energies of the cosmos, you gave as good as you got. And at one point, you'd hope that the physicist would step down from the pulpit, walk over to your broken-hearted spouse there in the pew, and tell him or her that all the photons that ever bounced off your face, all the particles whose paths were interrupted by your smile, by the touch of your hair, the hundreds of trillions of particles have raced off like children, their ways forever changed by you. And as your widow rocks in the arms of your loving family, may the physicist let her know that all the photons that bounced from you were gathered in particle detectors that are her eyes, and that those photons created within her constellations of electromagnetically charged neurons whose energy will go on forever. You can hope that your family will examine this evidence and satisfy themselves that the science is sound, and that they will be comforted by knowing that energy is still around. Your energy is still around. And according to the law of conservation of energy, not a bit of you is gone. You're just less orderly.
Fair.
And there's a Buddhist one. Hang on. This is one concept of death for a Buddhist. Picture a wave in the ocean, right? You can see it. You can measure its height, the way the sunlight reflects off of it. It's there. It's a wave. Then it crashes into the shore and it's gone. But the water is still there. The wave is just in a different way for water to be for a while. That's one conception of death for a Buddhist. The wave returns to the ocean where it came from and where it's supposed to be.
Yep.
So we're just waves, man. Go with the flow.
Yeah, like I say, I think I'm too much of a pragmatist to believe in the concept of higher power or divine order or any of that kind of stuff. To me, it just does not compute. But I feel like I've learned enough about science in my life to accept that while there is an absolute definitive end for a corporeal form, that it's naive to think we understand beyond what we do what happens to the energies that make us. So what's that line? We're all made of stardust, you know?
Like, we are stardust. We are golden.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't know. Again, I think it's either ignorance or hubris to think you know the answer to these things. And if you're telling people what's going to happen, then you're a genuine ass. So
all right. Yeah. Well, I guess that's it for another episode. So, Jonathan, if people can get in touch with you, where would they find you?
You can find me on Twitter for now and Instagram as @JPK News, or you can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/JPK or #JPK. My
name is Timitra, TIMMITRA on the Twitter machine, also on Mastodon, also on YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube, the button over there, please mash that button, subscribe, like and subscribe. And then I gotta get as many people listening to this show are on YouTube anyway, so that I can put t-shirts on, because Jonathan won't put t-shirts on, or doesn't know how to put t-shirts on his site.
That's it. It's not that I'm reticent, it's not that I'm not willing, it's that I completely lack the knowledge.
Yeah. All right, so take it away, Mike.
You've been listening to the Spockcast podcast. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spockcast website at spockcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter at Spockcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpockcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/Spockcast. You can find details on how to help us on our website, spockcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
Yeah.
I like to step up our comic book content if we wanted those to be our sponsors. But
Well, I know a couple of science fiction authors who don't listen to the show because they don't like Discovery. But, if they did, John Wilker, we could show your books.
yes,
Yeah. So I don't know. Books or movies or whatever,
yeah.
some paid product. We could talk about this paid product announcement here, right? But
This is brought to you by books.
this this episode brought to you by this nice water that I've been drinking all the show during the show, right?
Yeah.
And my new Apple Watch. Yes, Apple sponsors, they don't sponsor us. But that would be nice. And if you joined us on Patreon, you might get these fine stickers that we have. Oh wait, these are not Spockcast.
No, those are MTJC ones. Where am I?
I don't. Do you have some Spockcast ones?
downstairs?
I have to get some more printed because I gave all my I gave my Spockcast ones away. So
I still have some downstairs.
all right. Well, I have one on my computer. Where's my computer?
I haven't finished doing all my graffiti tagging around the neighborhood with those.
Yeah, here's my work computer. This is not a product placement. They're not sponsoring this show, but you can see right over here.
There it is.
That's fine. Spockcast with the mirror. Ooh, mirror. You can Spot Hero. Get your parking at Spot Hero. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what we need to do for our Patreon. We need to start tier 1, get some stickers. Tier 2, we'll work up towards the shirts.
Yeah.
We'll just start layering in the merch.
Yeah, definitely. You see my space shuttle that I finally got?
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah.
Did you get did I see the Sonic set back there? Did you get the Sonic set?
Yeah, it's there. I also have the Big Bird Sesame Street one.
I saw that one. It's very cool. Did you see there's a Winnie the Pooh one that's pretty cool too, that's out now? Yeah, I completely spaced on it. I meant to ask for that Sonic one for Christmas, but I completely spaced on remembering it. And I went to go do some shopping for my niece the other day at the toy store. I was like,
how much is it here? Because it's like $99 in the US.
I think it's about the same.
Yeah, I bought it when it first came out, but I thought maybe it would become unobtainium, but apparently it's quite popular, so it's still being made. So
yeah, I mean, I saw it at Toys R Us.
I have the Statue of Liberty. You can't see it there, but I bought it on eBay, and then I found that it's everywhere now.
Oh yeah,
it was all everywhere we went in Ireland. They had it, right? So
yeah.
So.
Well, if you want to throw down on the Lego front, I can do the.
Oh yeah, you're doing that. Are you? Yeah,
I've got.
Dagobah.
This is Jabba's castle, Jabba's palace with the Jabba,
Yeah.
and then yeah. So
is that the expensive Death Star?
So
The
there's
9,000 pieces one or whatever it was.
No, there's well, this one is, I think it's 4,500 or something like that. It was like $500. It's not nothing.
Yeah.
But there's one that is like a Techniques kind of set one where it's the Return of the Jedi one with all the like half built parts, and that one's some crazy number of pieces. But even when that one was new, it was like $700 or some fool number. Now it's ridiculously overpriced. But that one was very cool as far as like it looked like a model. Very, very neat.
Yeah.
But this one comes with minifigures and sort of dioramas and stuff like that. It comes with like 24 minifigures and stuff. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I have over. You can't see it over here, but I have the Saturn V.
Oh yeah, I saw
I have
that.
all
That's
the
a really neat
architecture
set.
ones. I have like the Falling Water. I have the Corbusier one. I have the Guggenheim.
Hmm.
I have the Yellow Submarine. That one I put together, the Yellow Submarine. Um,
I think I know where you got the yellow submarine.
yes, I think I know. I think I also know where I got it. I also have a bunch of cool cars you can't see over here. Like I have a Hot Wheel Back to the Future time machine,
Nice.
DeLorean, yeah, and a bunch of the Batmobile ones. So yeah, cool.
Got that one here too.
That's the Lego one.
It's the Lego.
Is that the latest one, or that's not the because there's now the Back to the Future
No, there's a
Legos as well.
deluxe one now. This is the small one. There's a deluxe one now that's even bigger,
Yeah.
which is really cool, but it's huge and
Does
expensive.
it have gull-wing doors? That one?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Does it
But
have
this
a
is the
little tiny
smaller.
flux capacitor in it, or?
It does have a little tiny flux capacitor in it, actually. It's like it's behind Marty there. You know, if you can really see it. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't really see it. No, maybe.
It's that thing
That's
there.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got the out of time license plate on it and everything.
Yeah. That one's kind of nice. I like the fact, I mean, it's small enough that it's not, I mean, when they see some of the Lego sets that they put together and they want to try to do curved fenders, but they're not quite, they just look wrong, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of doing I had a bit going for a while where I was getting sort of the cars. I have
Hmm.
Ecto one from Ghostbusters. I've got that one. I've got a few others that are sort of cool cars from different things. I meant to get they did a 1966 Batmobile a little while ago. I haven't picked
Yeah,
that one up
that's
yet.
still around because you can still get that one because it comes with a Joker
Yeah,
and Batman.
yeah, and with an Adam West looking, gray
Yeah,
outfit Batman. Yeah, that I wanted to get myself one of those at some point.
yeah. Hmm. So much time, too much time, not enough, too many things, not enough time.
Well, honestly, at this point, it's shelf space. Where the heck do you put everything,
Oh, I
right?
got this. I don't know if I never bought the Rush albums.
Hmm.
So I got this one. I can lend you if you wanted to make a backup copy of them.
Yes, a backup copy would be a good idea. Yeah, I think I only have maybe two or three.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm obviously the early Rush fan. So,
Yep.
but apparently, this one of the albums on here is all covers. Like,
Weird.
it's weird. Yeah. I mean, like, and Summertime Blues, Heart Full of Soul, For What It's Worth, The Seeker, Mr. Soul, Shapes as Things, and Crosswords, which are all like classic, guitar songs, right?
Yep.
So I guess at the end of it, they wanted to be a cover band.
Did they play covers when you saw them in
No, they
school?
played Farewell to Kings and 2112 and stuff. I only ever saw them once.
Oh, I thought you saw them at. No, you saw Max Webster when you were in school, right?
Yeah, I saw Max Webster. So Max Webster opened for Rush the time that I saw them. But yeah, I
Hmm.
only managed to ever get to see Rush play once, which is a shame because I didn't know that they were like well, they ended at what 2015 I think was their last show, right? So
Yeah.
last
Yeah.
tour, I guess. Yeah.
Yep.
Now I just have to settle for the Foo Fighters.
Oh, good things.
Well, not really the Foo Fighters. They lost their drummer too.
Yeah,
Anyway,
if only they could find a good backup drummer.
yeah. Well, it's funny, Dave's been showing up on a few things. He showed up at Billie Eilish's concert the other day and
I saw that.
he's been
Yeah.
playing drums on a few places around. And I think well they did the them Crooked Vultures at the Taylor Hawkins shows, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
who knows? I don't know.
Anyway.
You see your books. It's funny, your books. Oh no, I guess you are kind of in focus. If you hold
Yeah. I
still
mean,
for
I
a
see it
sec.
on my screen. It's a.
No, I mean you're pretty sure. Maybe it could be the resolution of your monitor. Like I'm using my iPhone 10 as my camera on this one. That's why it says detail in the corner. Is it there or there?
Hmm.
Which side is which? I don't know. This is my left hand. No, it's my right hand. Okay, my video is reversed. Normally it's the other way
Yeah.
around.
I can tell mine's
Um,
reversed too because I can see the books in behind me are reversed. I can see the names are flipped on my screen from what I'm seeing.
I can't read any of the titles, so I can't really help you. Oh well.
Over here, it should say Batman, Batman, Batman. That's Doom Patrol. That's Flash. That's Green Lantern. That's Flash. That's Fourth World. That's Saga. That's Invincible. I'm doing these backwards and flipped.
Oh, you mean your video's backward?
Yeah.
Is my video backwards? Okay, so this is my it's my video's backwards. Like normally when you're on a Zoom call, your video's the right way around, but
yeah,
I don't know. Or maybe I don't know. Anyway, on that note, we should probably sign off. Say bye.
Probably.
Okay, talk to you later. I'll see you in a couple of days, I guess, right? So
yes, Sunday, I guess.
Sunday, yeah. Or unless we figure out a time to go see The Way of the Water.
Yeah, I mean, if tomorrow's my last day, anything after that, I'm good. Doesn't really matter. We can go see a matinee or go see a late show or whatever. I don't really care. But
cool. All right.
Julia's gone home, and Xavier's not interested. So I can go whenever.
All right.
It's good. Just you and me.
Less to worry about. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Bye.
See ya.